Hey, everybody, David Essel here. Very excited to give you this message today as I adjust our camera here. There's a really interesting experience in our world called death and dying. You know, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, probably my first real teacher in the world of death and dying, grief, and more. Her book, Death and Dying, still is the Bible for mental health, nurses, doctors, consultants, psychiatrists, et cetera. And I'm going to tell you a story about my dad and his passing and what happened when I missed actually the moment of his death. One of the things that my brother Terry told me a number of months ago was that my father only had one request. My mom died a year ago. And my father only had one request, and that would be that his three children would be by his side, myself, my brother Terry, my sister Mary Diane, as he passed. So me and I got the message that he was very ill, and he had been ill for 4 years and hospice for 2 years, but he had been raced to the hospital. And that day he came back and he actually FaceTimed with us. And I could tell right away that he was in serious trouble, even though he always put on this amazing face. It didn't matter if he just came out of surgery. The guy was a powerful, powerful human being that I didn't really realize how powerful my own father was until the last 4 years. Watching him suffer with grace, watching him watch his wife of 71 years, my mom, die in our house. He was already incredibly sick, but watching his power, his emotional power was amazing. So because of very serious concerns that we had a drive from Florida to New York. And so we got off the FaceTime and I said to Mia, we need to go right now. He's dying and he's not going to make it. And so my brother and I talked and said, he should be able to make it through Monday. Hospice thinks they'll be able to make it through Monday. If you get up here Saturday, that shouldn't be an issue. And so we were going to get up there on Sunday, actually. And then we decided to leave early. And we're racing up from Florida to New York. And then early in the morning, as we were leaving a city, my brother texts and says, please pull over. And he said, Dad just died. And my brother, bless his heart, he's an amazingly powerful human being. He was with my dad. There were two people with my dad when he passed. It was my brother Terry and a hospice nurse. So, of course, the rest of the trip was very, very difficult. We missed him by a couple hours. And when we got there, I said to my brother that I had to have time with my father alone. I don't care if he's passed. I have no interest whatsoever in being turned off by my father, who has physically left this world, because I knew emotionally and spiritually he was still here. It was very difficult, though, because I was filled, honestly, with guilt and regret. He had one request, and I blew it. The one thing that he wanted more than anything, I couldn't fulfill. I missed it. I mistimed it. And I know a lot of people would say, oh, well, it's not a perfect science. Hospice isn't a perfect science. Medical isn't a perfect science. You didn't miss him on purpose. It just happened that way. And that would be logical, right? In the early stages of grief, which I have been a counselor teaching for over 30 years, there's no such thing as logic in the initial stages of grief. Throw that out the window. My dad died like 7 weeks ago, and you can see I'm still incredibly emotional, and I probably will be every time I talk about him for a while. But I have to share this message because I want people to know that even if you miss your parent or a sibling or someone you love, you miss their passing, there's still things that are important to do. And from my training, but even more so than my training, my beliefs is that I had to be alone with my dad. I don't care if his body was cold. I don't care if it was rigid. None of that mattered. Not when you love someone. So deeply. Not when you see what this human being did for 94 years to try to be a leader and teach you as a role model. You know, it really crushes you when you miss that opportunity. But then something magical happened that removed 99% of my guilt and regret of missing my dad's one request, is that I got that time with my dad. And what I'm going to share, not everyone would ever want to do, and not everyone can do it. To me, it was a lifesaver. And that was this: I got a chance to wrap my arms around my father as I was screaming and crying how sorry I was that I missed his one request. I was basically on top of my father for hours. Some would say in hysteria, crying. I will say I was simply venting and telling him how sorry I was. And then it all shifted and it went to pure love. As tears are streaming down my face all over my father, who is now passed on, I was able to rage about my love. I was able to rage about how much I respected him. And when I say rage, I'm talking about it in the most positive way possible. I screamed for hours into my father's ear. I let him know everything and anything I could have ever wanted him to hear from me. I made sure there wasn't a thing I missed about what he taught me. What a powerful German man. What a humble man. What a gentle man. What a focused man. What a man of such immense faith he was. And the raging, the screaming, the tears continued. If I had a chance to do it again, I would do it identically. And all of those tears and that rage, and at first unbelievable regret that I didn't have a chance to talk to him before he passed, turned into this adoration, this complete adoration. For what he meant to me, how he was able to be so powerful in my mom's illness with dementia. My father is sick as hell, going through all kinds of operations, being returned to a house, and sometimes my mom wouldn't know who he was. And my dad would just smile and hold her hand. I got a chance to tell him what an amazing role model he was, even though I was difficult as a child. And then I got to talk to him about the most positive thing that came out of his passing, out of his death. And that is the legacy that I want to carry on in his name. You know, the interesting thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that I never really have believed in legacies, quite frankly, not from a family point of view. I never really looked at how am I going to be more like my mom when she passes? How am I going to be more like my dad? I already have about every trait that my mom brought into this world, although I'm not as good as she was. If you've never seen a video I did on my mom on my YouTube channel, there are several videos. I've done articles about what she taught me and how I followed what she taught me for 40 years. But I didn't know I'd learned the same thing from my dad's passing. The legacy of my mom is so powerful. It's about treating human beings with respect. With my mom, it's about rooting for the underdog. With my mom, it's about taking care of the homeless, the marginalized, loving nature and animals, being organized and focused. Those were my mom's traits, as well as her incredible faith. But I never thought about ever that I would do a video like this, or I would turn my life upside down so I could be more like my dad, Ed Essel. He was a veteran of war. And on September 11th last year, in 20 minutes of his ability to be on my radio show, he came on my radio show to talk about his pride as a Navy veteran. I don't think my dad missed a Navy reunion in 40 years. Him and my mom made every one until there was no one left alive from the group of men on his ship. And as I'm screaming and crying and holding him and slobbering all over his body after he passed, things started to shift. And I started to screaming still as loud as I could, I am going to do my best, Dad. To become more like you. To deepen my faith. And I want to tell you, during the funeral for my dad in January, I was on the altar and I said these very words. My father was one of the deepest men of faith I've ever seen in my life. He became an altar boy at 72. From 65 to 75. My mom and dad went to church 7 days a week, and then they would go downstairs into this basement of the church that had a small store that gave away food and clothing to the homeless and the marginalized. That was him. So I screamed in his ear that I was going to be a man of greater faith, that I was going to be a man of greater service. I was going to be a man of greater emotional control. Yes. That I was going to do my damnedest to become a man as great as he was and is today. He's living through me. Those hours expressing everything I'm sharing with you right now somehow became a bigger part of who I am. Just me screaming that I want to be more like you, Ed Essel, more like you, Steady Eddie Essel, more like you, my dad, who showed up by himself for 2 straight years, sitting in the stadium at Syracuse University, watching me play basketball with an egg salad sandwich every night. A powerful man, fully dedicated to his family. My brother, my sister would swear on my grave right now how true that is. And I want you to know it's not too late. If I couldn't have been all over my father, screaming these things, I would have had to do it into a pillow, which I highly recommend you think about. Grab that loved one's shirt or blouse or bathrobe. Grab it, hold it, scream into it everything you love about this person, and then How can you be more like that? How can you dedicate and devote your life to be more like that brother or that sister or that grandparent or that next door neighbor or that teacher or that parent that you respect the hell out of? That's a part of death we don't talk about enough. My father dying changed me. I'm still not there. I still have room to grow, a lot of room to grow. I've battled different things my whole life, which is why I chose to be in the world of counseling. It's why I became a pastor of a church. It's why I became a minister, an author, a speaker, a coach. This is my journey, but I had no idea until 4 years ago that a huge part of my journey would be carrying on the legacy of my father at Essel. Until he got sick and I was able to see his power and strength, I didn't know I needed to be more like him. My brother Terry was the main caregiver. My sister Mary Diane was right next to him as both my mom and dad died. And my brother would tell me stories of my dad coming out of painful procedures after painful procedures and looking at the doctors and nurses and saying thank you. Do you know the type of emotional power and strength it takes to do that? I didn't know that that was my dad. I didn't know what he was capable of. Now I'm 66. That means for 62 years, I missed the power of my father. The last 4 years changed everything. This is a long video. I'm trying to speak slowly and in some kind of emotional control, but as you can tell, my emotions they're dripping down my face. You may watch this and not have had a great relationship with your mom or dad, and I'm very sorry. If there's a way you can forgive them and forgive yourself, I'm going to ask you to do that. It's worth it. I was very fortunate being able to hold him for hours after he passed, that it allowed me to let go of my guilt and shame and regret that I missed him. 99% of it left that day because I was able to share with him, love him, and tell him I'm ready to go deeper. I'm ready to change, to make an even bigger difference in this world in his name, not my name. Oh, jeez. This is his watch. My dad was so humble, and I've always tried to be humble. This is a Timex watch. It's 30 to 40 years old. He had no need for a new one. Never did. Never really cared. So I wear it in pride to remember him. I haven't worn a watch in 30 years. I'll never take this off. Along with trying to live up to my dad's legacy of gentleness and kindness and faith, emotional power and service, I also told him this when I was on top of him, crying and screaming and loving him. The crying and screaming was absolute love, that I would never cut my hair. And that might sound funny. But I told him that because my dad lost all of his hair about 30. And I wanted to have daily reminders of my father, daily reminders of his strength and his love, his kindness and his service to this world. At the funeral, when I was talking about my dad's faith, I want to make this comment because it means the world to me. With last rites, the priest came to the house, and my brother was there, and the priest was there, and the nurse was there. And he gave my father his final communion. My mom and dad were Roman Catholics. And the priest and my brother said to me that when he placed the communion wafer on my dad's tongue, as he was dying, my father broke into hysterical tears of gratitude. He was crying hysterically because he knew he was going home to God and my mom. He was going home. He knew he would be out of pain shortly, and his gratitude to God streamed down his face. I've never seen my dad cry with streams of tears. A year ago, June, I had an opportunity before my dad died to sit and talk to him, and we shared tears. But my dad didn't cry very often in the 94 years I knew him. Rarely did he ever cry. It's kind of like men of his age, they looked at it differently than I do. I cry all the time, and I'm very content with my tears. And my dad rarely cried, and he was very content not crying. And that difference is beautiful. But when I heard, when he took communion, that the tears just flew out of gratitude, I stood on the altar at his funeral and I said this: my father had such deep faith that he never spoke about it. That's how strong he was. He led by example. He never said a word to anyone unless they asked. No one would have known at 72 he became an altar boy unless I told the world, and I did. I told the world on my radio show 22 years before he died. I bragged about it. No one would have known that him and my mom went to church 7 days a week for 10 years unless I told the world. Blogs, radio interviews, television. I told everyone. My dad never told a soul. He lived by example. And in the church, I said that. My father didn't have to broadcast his belief in God. He didn't broadcast his deep faith. All he did was live it. And I want to do the same. And I'm going to do the same. It's going to take me a while, probably, to be able to talk about my dad without all these tears. And eventually it'll come. I'm not rushing it. I'm doing this video, one, to share my personal experiences, but two, I want you to benefit. And I really want you to think, has someone passed that you haven't grieved deeply over, that you haven't told them everything you've always wanted to tell them? It's not too late. I believe we are eternal. My mom and dad are with us every day. I talk to them every day. If I'm not too tired at night, I journal to them and tell them stories. And I always tell them, I know you already know this because you're around us all the time, but I'm going to tell you anyway. We planted a garden for you today, or whatever we do to honor my mom and dad. I believe because of this eternal connection that my dad will continue to guide me. And so will my mom. And I've asked my mom and dad to become part of the still small voice in my mind, that when I'm confused and I'm not sure what to do, that they talk to me. And they do. I've had some very difficult experiences over the past 7-8 weeks since my dad has passed, some very tough things. And I go to my mom and dad, and I go to God, and I ask for guidance, and I get it. But see, I think the reason I get it is because I've opened the gateway and I've told them I need them. I'm still their boy. At 66, I'm still their boy. At 86, I'll still be their boy. At 96, I'll still need them. And I love that. I love the fact they're never going to leave me. And I love the fact they're always with me. And I love the fact they're guiding me in this video today. This is not scripted. This is my experience. Plus my dad, I know he's talking through me right now. We have courses on grief. If you'd like to visit talkdavid.com, please feel free to. If you need help in the grieving process, I would love to help you. Losing my mom and dad in 12 months has been very, very difficult. But this is not a sad video by any means. Even though I've cried a lot during this video, I want you to see this video as a video of freedom, a video of hope, a video of change. My dad awakened me in his death by really mirroring to me the stuff I need to change about David Essel to be the best person I can be in this world. I mean, it was incredible when I was screaming how much I want to be with him and be like him. All of these things, I've said to Mia several times, I've never really looked at my German heritage other than just being German. I'm half German, half French, but I've never really looked at how incredibly powerful my German heritage is and how proud I am to be half German. Because my dad was German and he's the one I'm talking about. I've learned so much from him. We're totally different people. He was an accountant. I'm a whatever. I'm a free spirit trying to help heal this world. And the DNA of my dad is in every damn cell in my body. And I am going to use that DNA to take my life and everyone I can meet to the next level. Please do the same. I'm here if you need help. TalkDavid.com. I'm David Essel. Share this video. Comment below. If you have comments that you'd like to share with me, something that you've experienced that maybe I'm not talking about, or something that you're pained about with missing someone, share it below. Right here, share it below. Join our YouTube channel. We're going to be putting out more and more videos like this and others. My dad has visited us twice, visited Mia even more than me, but he's powerfully come to me 2 times, and I'll be doing different videos on those in the future. I didn't want to put it all into one. But comment below, join this, share this video if you can. I want people to know that death is not the end. Death is the beginning. It's the beginning of a new life for me. It's the beginning of new opportunities for me to serve God and this world on a deeper level. And I'm going to do my damnedest to be like Ed Essel. And like my mom, Pat Essel, who was a powerful Irish woman, who I got some fiery blood. I love you. I'm here for you. Have a beautiful day.